Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. It's Thursday, I have finished work. I'm in middle of the week because yesterday I finished the book I've been reading for the past week and a half. And I wanted to get this review done ASAP. I was going to do it yesterday, but my work has been so crazy this past week and a half that I've just been so exhausted at the end of the working day. And today I'm feeling tired, but not as exhausted as I was yesterday when I was originally going to do this review. So it's had to wait until today. And the book I'm here to talk about is The Golum and the Dijinni by Helene Wecker. Previously, when I've talked about this book, I've realised that I said Golum, but it's Golum, so I apologise for getting that wrong for a start off. So I got recommended this book by a friend and former work colleague of mine, Sam, and she said, "Oh, I've just finished reading this. I thought it might be something you'd be interested in," and so I bought it just straight away. Just thought, if she's recommended it to me, I'm going to give it a go. So in case you don't know what this is about, The Golum and Djinni is about a golem and a genie. It's set in New York in 1899, where these two characters of Jewish and Arabian folklore arrive in New York. So the golem is a woman called Hava, and the genie is a man called Ahmed. And Hava is a golem, should I say, is someone who has been formed from clay and brought to life by a rabbi. And they are basically then kind of the slaves to their masters for the rest of their life. But unfortunately for Hava, she is brought to life and her master dies on the voyage to New York. So she arrives in New York completely unaware of the world. She got brought to life on this ship. She doesn't know anything, so she has a lot to learn on her journey. And the genie arrives in an oil canister, a lamp thing, a container. I can't remember the name of the specific container, what it was called. He's been trapped in there for a very long time, and a tinsmith who was working on the canister let loose the genie, unaware that there was one there. And so Ahmed is thousands of years old, and he's been trapped in there for a very long time, and it's all for him, it's learning about this new world and seeking revenge on the one who put him there. So these two characters, it's all about their life in New York. They become friends, and there is an underlining story that affects them both and their world in New York in 1899. So with this, I thought it was going to be quite a lot of fantasy with some historic elements, when in fact it turned out to be a lot of historic elements and quite a small amount of fantasy. So I expected it to kind of be, in a way, but still very different, like the Shadowhunter books by Cassandra Clare, and where there's these, if you don't know what the Shadowhunters are, they basically fight demons and such in New York. And Cassandra Clare has a series of prequel books to the Mortal Instruments, which are set in Victorian London, with Shadowhunters doing the same thing. So I had this kind of Shadowhunters kind of thing on my mind as I was reading this, and it turned out to be something very different. So this was first published in 2013. And the sequel to it came out earlier this year. It was originally going to come out in 2018, but it got delayed by 3 years. As to what caused the delay, I have no clue. It was announced in 2015. That was when she said, "Oh, I'm going to write a sequel to be 2018 release," and it moved to 2021. So no idea why that happened. And she had a short story published in 2017. But other than that, she hasn't written anything else. So I was like, okay, right, let's see how we go with this as a debut novel. And as a debut novel, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. Oh, sorry, something's just flashed on my screen. Hang on. There we go. Sorry about that. Something just flashed up on my screen and took over my screen. So I was like, I don't even know, it's still recording. But it looks like it still is. What was I saying? Yes, so I was impressed with what she did. She kept a good pace, it had a good flow, but there were some things about it where I was just a little irked by. So first things first, the two characters, our two lead characters, it says on the back of the book, you know, these are our two characters. She explains kind of who they are, where they've come from in a very short, you know, space of time. And then it says, together experiencing freedom for the first time, they form the most unlikely of friendships. So because this is a 600 odd page book, I was thinking, okay, so they must meet relatively early, given the flow of what way she's writing it and everything. Okay, this is going to happen pretty soon. It didn't happen until about 250, around that range, between 230 and 250 pages. That's when they first meet. And then we have, you know, several meetings of them developing their friendship, and then right when their friendship really gets going, that's when kind of like the underlining fantasy element story comes in that will affect the both of them. So I was like, okay, why are we going 230, 250 pages before they even meet? And then you've got probably about page around the 350, 400 is when the fantasy underlining story came in. So it's only really 200 odd pages of the book that is this fantasy element. So why do we have to wait so long to get there? She also does this thing where she pretty much tells you the entire life story of characters. Now, if it's for key characters, totally get it, totally happy. She needs you to understand where they've been, where they are, to understand how they're going to react in this scene that they're currently in, how they're going to respond to some. Totally understand that, happy with that. When you're doing that with characters who you'll meet once or twice, what's the point of that? That you've kind of not wasted, but you've used time where you could have used it in a better way. At least that's my own personal opinion. She has this wonderful flow to her writing, which I really appreciate, which I really loved. But yeah, when you're having me read and understand the entire backstory of a character who I'm never going to see again, why? Do I really need that information? And the honest answer is no. So I wish that it had been condensed down more because of that. I really did love and appreciate that we really got to know the people who come into contact with Hava and Ahmed, the friendships that they form. I loved like Anna was wonderful, who's Hava's friend, and you know, jobs that they take and things that they learn along the way, secrets that they have to hide and how they hide them and how they process things like relationships and society. It is a really interesting way of looking at people who don't fit, conform to society and such, using fantasy to talk to have the discussion about it, and also immigration as well. I thought it was a really interesting tool to do that. I do wish that Helen had not done something. There is a thing, and I'm going to have to kind of do a little spoiler here, but it's only going to be a little bit. It's not a big, you know, I'm giving a massive thing away. I really didn't like the fact that she did this thing that because the two of them are different and so they understand each other, there has to be a kind of romance element there. And I'm like, no, it really doesn't. They could just be friends, be support for each other. And I'm just like, I really don't want them to do that. So it's just, yeah, it's very kind of thing. Oh, well, of course that's going to happen. Why does it have to happen? Why? It just, yeah, that kind of irked me a little bit. But for everything that she's done with this book, it's not a bad book at all. I just feel structurally it could have been tighter in areas, for sure. So yeah, I'm going to do a bit of a reading. Let me just see. Yes, yeah, this is the one I was going to do. So I marked a couple of places, and I forgot which one I was going to read. So just to give you an idea of her writing and everything, I'm going to read a bit of this. So this is when the Djinni and the Golem first meet in New York. And it's been several months since they arrived. It's actually page 231. So when I said between like 230 and 250, I wasn't wrong, was I? Yay. But yeah, so this is them first meeting. So here we go. Until now, the Djinni's evening had been rather disappointing. He'd taken advantage of the clear skies and gone out, but without much enthusiasm. Feeling uninspired, he planned to visit the aquarium again, but found himself instead at City Hall Park, an unremarkable patchwork of lawn broken to pieces by wide intersecting concrete paths. From there, he'd made his way to the Park Road terminal shed, a long, low building that stood on thick girders. He walked beneath it and looked up at the train sleeping on the tracks, waiting to ferry the morning passengers across the Brooklyn Bridge. He hadn't been to Brooklyn, and he didn't want to go, not yet. He felt he needed to parcel out those new experiences carefully to keep from running out. Sorry, big plane going over my house, really annoying me. Yeah, there we go. Keep from running out. He had a fleeting image of himself, 10, 20, 30 years hence, wandering in ever-widening circles, exhausting every source of distraction. He rubbed at the iron at his wrist. Forgot to mention, he's got an iron clasp on his arm and a chain that he cannot break since he's was set free from the oil canister. So that's the iron rubbing against him, the shackle on his wrist. The ever-widening circles, exhausting every source of distraction. He rubbed the iron on his wrist, then noticed that he was doing and stopped. He would not succumb to self-pity. He wandered northeast along Park Row and realised he was nearing the Bowery. He had no wish to go back again so soon. So he took a random turning and landed on a street lined with squalid-looking tenements. This, he thought, was no better. The buildings on either side narrowed to wedges ahead of a large intersection, a cracked wasteland of pavement. Beyond lay a narrow, hemmed-in park. There was a woman standing alone at the centre. At first, he only saw that she was a respectable-looking woman, out by herself in the dead of night. Such a thing was odd, if explainable, but she wore no hat or cloak, merely a shirt-waist and skirt. And why was she staring at him, tracking his every move? Was she deranged or merely lost? He reached the middle of the intersection and glanced at her again, unsettled, and saw that she was not human, but a living piece of earth. He stopped cold. What was she? Now he too was staring. Hastily, he walked forward onto the grass, where when he was a few feet from her, she sniffed and made to draw back. Immediately he stopped. The air around her held a breath of mist and the scent of something dark and rich. "What are you?" he asked. She said nothing, gave no indication she'd understood. He tried again. "You're not human. You're made of the earth." At last she spoke. "And you're made of fire," she said. The shock of it hit him square in the chest, and on its heels an intense fear. He took a step backward. "How," he said, "did you know that?" "Your face, it glows, as if lit from within. Can no one else see it?" "No," he said, "no one else." "But you can see me as well," she said. "Yes." He tilted his head, trying to puzzle it out, looked at it in one way. She was merely a woman, tall and dark-haired, and then his vision shifted somehow, and he saw her features carved in clay. He said, "My kind can see all creatures' true natures. It's how we know each other when we meet, in whatever shape we may be wearing. But I've never seen..." He reached out, unthinking, to touch her face, and she nearly leapt back. "I shouldn't be here," she gasped. She glanced wildly around, as if seeing where she was for the first time. "Wait, what's your name?" he asked, but she shook her head and began to back away like a frightened animal. So there's more of their first meeting, but just to get an idea of how she writes and such. It's a lovely story. I think it's less fantasy, more historic, or at least in my eyes. As I said, if I compare to like the Shadowhunter books, which I had on my mind as I was reading this. But what I really loved was that Helene really brought out so much detail about the communities that each of these characters live with, work with. I learned a lot about the folklore, Arabian and Jewish folklore, about the two cultures. Sorry, another big plane over my house. You can tell it's quite a nice day today because there's so many planes around. What was I saying? Yeah, the people that they each encounters, the communities around them, and there's all different cultures and groups of people all around them, and I really loved that. So I learned some stuff from this. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but it was a really decent read. And apart from a few issues I had with structure, I enjoyed it. So I can't really, say it was bad or anything, or put it on my consider for worst book of the years, but I wouldn't put it in my pile for the best book of the years. It was just in the middle. I enjoyed it. It was good. There you go. Now, as to the sequel, it came out earlier this year. Honestly, I don't know why she's written it. Because of the way that the book ended, it is open to possibly a future book. There's no denying that. But given what the underlying fantasy darkness was, I said how it really comes into play properly about 400 pages into this book, because of the way that got resolved, unless you completely undo all of that story, or you bring in a brand new kind of threat, which I think possibly would not make sense, I honestly don't know. I don't think it would work. I can't think how there can be more to it. I'm happy for it to finish with the one book. So because of that, I've decided that I'm not fussed about reading the sequel. Maybe later down the road, but right now I'm willing to let it pass. See how it go, because it's kind of like, in a way, in comparison, like an unexpected hit of a movie. How the story tied up pretty well, and then they've gone, oh, this has made so much money, let's make a sequel and completely undo everything that we did in the first one. That'll make logical sense. No, it doesn't. And that's what I'm fearing is the case of the second book. So thus I'm willing to just take a step back for a while and just maybe get to it at some point, but I'm happy to remain with just the one book. But yeah, I haven't read any reviews of the second book, so I don't know how people have responded to it. But I'm completely happy with the one book. So there we go. So my thoughts on The Golem and the Dijinni by Helene Wecker. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Let's ask my questions before I tie up this video. So, would I read this again? I think I would. I don't feel like in the next year or so I'd want to read it again, but I'm glad I've read it. But maybe later down the line, like I might find, sometimes you get that with books where you're like, I enjoyed reading it, and then one random day in autumn you just go, oh, I really fancy just something that just cleanse the palate, something like that. That I already know, that's a bit comforting and such, and thus you pick up something that you can just easily just fall into that you've read before. I think this is one of those books for me. So yeah, I'd read it again, but not like right now. But there we go. Yeah. So would I read any more of Helene's work? Now, yes, I'd be willing to give it a go, because I said I'd be willing to read the sequel. But not right now. And to be honest, she's owned this, this was 2013, her second book, 2021. So I'd like to see other stories that she publishes and what those subjects will be about. To, more of an understanding of her as an author, basically. So I hope that she publishes more books, and then I can get more of a feel of her writing and such from different genres and, that kind of thing, different books, separate from The Golem and the Dijinni. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes, I would, but I'll just flag that for me, structurally I had some issues with it, but overall it's not a bad read. So there we go. So if you read this book, I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you. I'll let you decide. I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which is another big book, so I'm not going to get it finished by this weekend. So it'll be next week, most likely, at the earliest, you'll get a review for. And that is Jane Eyre's Husband by Tara Bradley. This is a self-published book from 2007, which my sister read in May. I think it was May or early June, because she gave it to me for my birthday, which was mid-June, and she absolutely adored it. And now, Laura, I can read it. So yeah, so I'll be back with my thoughts on Jane Eyre's Husband as soon as I'm done. All right, guys, bye.